If someone came up to me and said, I hate white people, I hate you because you're white, did I just experience racism from that?
No.
But if I said those exact same words and twisted the skin color, it would be racist.
Absolutely, 100%.
I did not go through that course of who can be racist towards each other. Interesting,
right.
but
Probably
I'm
because you're white, so.
Oh, because I'm white, I didn't go through the racism course.
Probably not.
Yes or no? Can white people experience racism?
No.
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 No?
No, by definition, no.
What's the definition?
I would have to Google it really quickly, but
Do that for me.
okay, let me Google it for you. Oh, not me on 5%. Hold on.
He was so proud of what he was saying. Too bad his phone went to 5% battery life the moment he was asked to back his sources. LOL.
Does height matter? Yeah. It does?
Yeah. You want me to step on the scale?
Yeah.
Why?
Because you think height matters. So if you could judge based on height, I could judge based on weight.
So you're calling me fat?
We're about to see right now.
No,
Let's see it.
I'm good.
Then just take it back. Say height don't matter.
No, because height does matter. I want what I want.
And I want what I want. So if I want a light woman, then I should have a light woman. Then just step on. Don't be a coward. Step on the scale.
I'm not a coward.
Well, you're backing out of
I
it.
can tell you my weight.
Well, that's why we got the scale, so we can tell you your weight.
Short kings don't matter, but big queens do. Let's just accept that love is love, yeah?
Identify as black? No, it's a serious question because you might not identify. Can you please put the mic? Thank you. Okay.
When I walked into the room,
I am not done with my question.
Hey, young lady.
I'm just asking you to listen to me while
I'm about to answer the first question.
But I didn't finish my question.
Okay. Yeah, I'm black.
Less than 9% of the people in this room are black. I think there are racial inequalities in America, and how do you feel about Trump increasing both economic inequality and discrimination for people of color and LGBTQ people? What about violence against marginalized people in the United States? Can you talk about that?
Well, the subject was about, national security and foreign policy.
It's unbelievable that even your skin color is up for debate if you're engaged in wrong think.
Women in this country still make 77 cents on the dollar for what men make. So if women don't make less than men?
Actually, if you start looking at the numbers, Rachel, there are lots of reasons for that.
Wait. Well, don't tell me the reasons are. Do women make less than men for doing the same work?
No, because...
Wow. Okay.
Well, for example, men work an average of 44 hours a week. Women work 41 hours a week. Men go into professions like engineering, science, and math that earn more. Women want more flexible professions.
Listen, this is not a math is hard.
No. Yes, it is, actually.
No, it isn't.
Well,
No, listen.
All right, let Rachel frame it, though, the way you
right now,
laid it out.
women are making 77 cents on the dollar for what men are making.
But that's not true. If so, every greedy businessman in America would hire only women, save 25%. For example,
this is a stylistic issue.
I'll tell you what.
My passion on this issue.
Here's a fact.
Is actually me making a factual argument on it. Alex,
may I share one fact with you?
Share.
When you look at, for example, single women working in America today between the ages of, I think, 40 and 64, who makes more, men or women, on average? Men make $40,000 a year. Women make $47,000. When you take out the marriage factor, look at some economics. My point here is that we're manufacturing a political crisis.
This is a classic example of feminists being challenged on the gender pay gap.
I didn't know that I was going to be sitting talking to a bunch of illiterate people who don't know how to read. But
you're literally 15. What do you know?
You know how to read?
Yes, I do know how to read.
Name 10 books.
Are you serious?
Yes, 100%. Name 10 books.
Well, I read Game of Thrones. I'm obsessed with the Twilight series.
Called?
Game of Thrones, the series?
What's the book called? It's not called Game of Thrones.
Wait, what book did you just say before that?
She's just trying to come up with a bunch of nonsense, and she can't name any actual books.
Let me show you the series since you don't believe me. I'll show you since you don't believe me.
The book is called Song of Ice and Fire. Now, before you embarrass yourself by looking up the name of a book, she couldn't even actually name a single book. She doesn't know how to read. She's clearly illiterate.
Okay.
She gets angry when called illiterate and then gets angrier when she's asked to name 10 books. She names a TV show.
But is it not right to say that you're detransitioning from being transracial? Transgender.
I was transgender.
How long were you transgender for?
For a year. I struggled with my identity my whole life. My issue is the trans activists that have hijacked the LGBT community and are causing real harm to the LGBT community by pushing gender ideology on children by forcing women out of women's spaces. That is my issue. I don't have an issue with trans people. I have many trans friends. My issue is with the radical gender ideology.
So do you think there is case for the argument then that this show is premised around this evening, that there is a bit of strain in the community?
There's definitely strain. I mean, look, there are people that say that sexuality and gender identity should not be conflated. And I think the real issue is the more extreme elements of the trans activists that are pushing this agenda, that are pushing for all these things on children, pushing for hormones on kids and puberty blockers.
When someone who has detransitioned shares concerns, it's important to put aside pride and listen.
I'm a mathematician and a physicist here, so I think I'm pretty, qualified to say that most of what you're saying is based on, old data. Gender identity disorder, that's the DSM-4, bro. We use the DSM-5 now for psychologists to be able to talk about...
I literally cited the DSM-5 in the speech, and it's called gender dysphoria, which is the term that I use throughout the speech, not gender identity disorder.
You sound like a bozo, bro. And you get no pussy, and you can't even make your wife wet, bro, so what's good? Third gender people, I'm not saying that. Third gender people exist in Native American societies, Western African societies, like Southern Native American societies, like Mexico. So in other places that are not white-dominated, like the United States or Europe. And so you're saying white, so non-white people... I'm a mathematician and a physicist.
As a mathematician and a physicist, what in the hell do you know about human biology?
And
if your logic is so flawed as a mathematician and a physicist, I would suggest that whichever institution gave you an award, revoke it immediately.
This person believes he knows more than the speaker. He should focus on presenting solid arguments and improving his presentation, instead of relying solely on his awards to establish credibility.
Leah Thomas, who, as we just heard, was not just the tallest boy in her college when she was competing as a biological male, but obviously the tallest girl as well. How can any of this be fair?
If you don't want to see trans women competing in women's sports, then you're going to have to allow young children who do not feel, who are experiencing gender dysphoria, to have those drugs when they're younger.
No, not at all.
You are.
In my estimation, you do one of two things. It's very straightforward. Trans women either compete against other trans women in an entirely new category, or they compete against their biological sex, because that is the biology they've been born with.
She insists that biological men belong in women's sports when the science clearly shows an advantage. How is this fair to women?
Indigenous communities have used two-spirit personas for the entirety of their culture, and so that leads me to my question. When you say that transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely, I ask you, Mr. Knowles, how can we eradicate something that has been here as long as humans have?
Well, yeah, there have been all sorts of crazy, terrible ideas for a very long time, too. You're pointing to civilizations that committed human sacrifice, okay? You're saying that some ancient pagan tribe worshipped demons and therefore we need to castrate children. That's not a good argument. Yes, that's true. There were all sorts of terrible tribes. In fact, as recently as a little over 500 years ago, the Aztecs here in the Western Hemisphere slaughtered 80,000 people in a sacrifice to one of the demons that they worshipped within the span of 4 days. That's not a recommendation of doing that. I don't think that we ought to consider it. You refer to a notion that is increasingly popular on the left, which is the idea of the two-spirit among various indigenous tribes. That is not real. That is a contrivance of white liberals in America. There have been various conceptions of sex and gender
for all of
human history.
It's so simple, yet she doesn't get it. Why allow to change one but not the other?
Two-spirited indigenous intuition of some modern transsexual living in New York City who's a man who very much desires to be a woman. That is a complete fiction. You will not find that in literature dating very far back.
She tries to equate transgenderism to ancient cultures. It doesn't work that way. If you found this video enjoyable, why not click on the video on the screen right now? Until next time.